Joined by my audience, Janelle and Mel. Thank you guys. Imagine getting a drink of water from the faucet, but when you turn the faucet on, the water that comes out is discolored, it smells bad, and eventually over time, with use, that faucet becomes corroded, and so does the sink and the dishwasher and the shower. And then a few months later, your dog dies, and the neighbor's horse dies due to liver toxicity, and their goat gives birth to deformed calves. Eventually, later on, your son is diagnosed with arsenic poisoning, and you have to move out of your house. You can't live there anymore because you keep getting sick. This isn't a hypothetical situation. This is an actual story of the Haney and the Boyles families from Amwell Township, Pennsylvania, that was documented in the New York Times after Range Resources began hydraulic fracturing on their land. Hydraulic fracturing, or fracking as it's commonly known, is defined by ProPublica as a process used in 9 of 10 natural gas wells in the United States, where millions of gallons of water, sand, and chemicals are pumped underground to break apart the rock and release the gas. This practice has been used for years, but never to the extent it has now and at the depths and pressures that it is currently performed at. So now that you know what hydraulic fracturing is, let's examine the problem a little bit further. Fracking causes health problems. The story of the Haney and the Boyles is not isolated. These events have happened all over the country where hydraulic fracturing is practiced by families who live close to the well sites. A study performed by the University of Colorado at Denver and the Colorado School of Public Health found that nearly 75% of products used in fracking had between 6 to 14 different adverse health effects, including skin, eye, and sensory organ damage, respiratory distress including asthma, gastrointestinal and liver disease, brain and nervous system harms, cancer, negative reproductive effects. Proponents of fracking would claim that there's no studies backing this up, but that's because these health effects are just being seen. Fracking hasn't been performed in nearby dense populations until in recent years. So studies are needed to help identify the effects, but there's a clear cause and effect. Families who live near well sites tend to have health problems and their water is polluted. Hydraulic fracturing is not just bad for humans, it's harmful to the planet as well. Recently, in nearby central Oklahoma and southern Kansas, earthquakes have become very common. The number of earthquakes per year since 2010 is up 5 times from the average per year. Some of these earthquakes have been a magnitude 5.0 or greater, causing property damage and injuries. In fact, we can see in this chart here that this is the cumulative number of magnitude 3.0 earthquakes or greater, and you can see the concentration in Oklahoma here near these hydraulic fracturing well sites. This is just the average, so here's the average rate, about 20 per year, and then suddenly about 2005, when fracturing becomes popular, especially in 2010, we see this huge spike where the hydraulic fracturing just takes off, or the number of earthquakes just takes off from hydraulic fracturing. In fact, the United States Geological Survey, in a press release issued just on February 19th, stated the increased seismicity is due to fluid injection associated with new technologies that enable the extraction of oil and gas from previously unproductive reservoirs. These modern extraction techniques result in large quantities of wastewater produced along with the oil and gas. The disposal of this wastewater by deep injection, basically what happens is these oil companies can't just put the water back in the streams. They have to inject it back into the ground because it's so toxic. So the injection of this wastewater occasionally results in earthquakes that are large enough to be felt and sometimes damaging. Deep injection of wastewater is the primary cause of dramatic rise in detected earthquakes and the corresponding increase in seismic hazard in the central United States. You can't argue with these facts. It's been studied, it's been proven. The government states that it's caused by hydraulic fracturing. In fact, state governments have begun to shut down well sites, especially the Oklahoma government, in areas where there have been frequent earthquakes in nearby well sites. So now that we understand the danger and the harm from hydraulic fracturing, what can we do? What needs to be done is we need to complete further studies so we can further understand what's being used in hydraulic fracturing. In fact, most of the time we don't know what chemicals are included in the hydraulic fracturing process because it's considered a proprietary blend and thus copyrighted, and the oil companies don't have to disclose what they're dumping into the ground. Additionally, the EPA is conducting current studies, and they've stated that so far 1,000 chemicals have been detected in fracking fluids, flowback, and produced water. What we need to also do is enforce the Clean Water Act on these oil companies. In 2005, the Bush administration pushed through legislation in Congress that allowed hydraulic fracturing companies to be exempt from the Clean Water Act, which keeps our drinking water safe. These companies don't have to disclose what they're putting into the ground and contaminating our drinking water with because they don't have to. They're not legally obligated to. Even the state of New York just in December banned hydraulic fracturing until further studies can be conducted and legislation enacted to make sure it can be done in a safe manner. So what can you do personally? You can contact your state, local, and federal legislators to make sure your voice is heard and tell them that we need to protect our resources and protect our families. So here's how I see things. Fracking causes damage to people's health, the environment, and causes earthquakes. The oil companies need to be regulated, and until we can ensure the safety of hydraulic fracturing, we need to ban and limit the fracking until we can further understand what is causing these problems, how to prevent them from happening again before we can let the fracking continue. So we need to stop families from hurting like the Haney and the Willis families and stop future harm to our environment. You need to take action, we need to take action to stop fracking, study the process, and assure the safety of our families and our environment. Thank you.